lecture, Recital. Today we are going to take a closer look at Shostakovich Preludes and Fugues, Opus 87, and explore how he created this set of masterpieces under difficult political circumstances. Well, here you can see Shostakovich in his early years. I chose this topic because I hope it will spark your interest in the whole cycle. When we think about Shostakovich, we usually think of his symphonies, but Opus 87 is really underrated. In this set, he develops many of the traits of his later compositional style, especially his more minimalist way of writing. In fact, a lot of the thematic material we hear later in the Shostakovich 10th and 11th symphonies first appears in the Preludes and Fugues. It's actually Shostakovich's largest and most ambitious work for piano. As we look more closely into this set, we can really see how inventive he is. But we also have to keep in mind that the political oppression he was living under. So the question is, how did those circumstances shape the way he thought and composed? And did he stay optimistic, or did he become more pessimistic? As I mentioned, Opus 87 is really underrated. One of the main reasons it wasn't popular at the time is that Shostakovich was criticized by the Composers Union after he gave the premiere. They attacked him for the dark, gloomy moods, the heavy dissonance, and even accused him of formalism. Clearly, this didn't match what the Soviet public was expected to like. On top of that, he was in poor mental and physical health, which may have affected the quality of the performance. And because of all this, people began to feel that going to his concerts was risky. Still, Shostakovich continued to perform pieces from this set in public. He didn't give up on it. Here we can also look at what musicologists have said. Alexander Dohansky considered this set an unprecedented achievement, comparable only to Bach's Well-tempered Clavier. And speaking of Bach, he actually wasn't the first composer to write Preludes and Fugues. The genre itself first appeared around 1702. And Richard Taruskin even describes it as a kind of personal narrative. Opus 87 was composed over just a few months, from October 1950 to February 1951. Unlike Bach's, WC is organized in a circle of fifths. Volume 1 contains numbers 1 to 12, and Volume 2 contains numbers 13 to 24. We can also divide the whole cycle into 4 groups, each with 6 preludes and fugues. The first group works like an introduction. The second and third gradually build tension towards a climax, and the intensity drops in the 5th piece, and the 6th rounds up and closes that section. Shostakovich attended the 1950 Bach competition as a member of the jury, where he met Lickeliver. The picture on the right shows the young Lickeliver. Inspired by her performance, Shostakovich decided to compose this set as a homage to Bach. I've also played some of Bach's WC before, so I've summarized 4 differences in polyphonic texture between Bach and Shostakovich. First, in Bach's fugues, the final cadence is usually the only place where the number of voices changes. In Shostakovich fugues, however, the number of voices can change at almost any point. For example, in the F sharp major fugue, as you can see, it begins with only 3 voices on the left-hand side, but within a few measures it grows to 4 voices and then to 5 voices. Second, the traditional boundaries between low, middle, and high voices, previously tied to the natural ranges of human voices, become much more blurred in Shostakovich fugues. And Another important tendency is the way homophonic texture penetrates the fugue. One example is the D-flat major fugue, where a series of perfect cadences begins in the middle of the piece and repeatedly interrupts the flow. The last feature I want to point out is his use of parallel minor sevenths. This actually breaks the rules of strict counterpoint, yet in many of his fugues, it stops feeling unusual at all. In the A minor fugue, for example, you can see several consecutive minor sevenths within a single bar. From this slide, we move into our main topic, the political pressures surrounding Shostakovich. Even before he wrote the Preludes and Fugues, his career had already suffered from the 1948 anti-formalist decree. He lost his post, his works were banned, and he was forced to compose against his own artistic will. Ironically, he was still officially a representative of the Soviet Union's cultural sector. Between 1951 and 1952, the anti-formalist campaign reached its peak, so we can understand Opus 87 as, in many ways, a political gesture. As a kind of cover, you could say that Shostakovich used many Russian elements, especially folk tunes, for example, in the subject of the D minor fugue. It's also easy to hear similar musical ideas in his other works, such as the Song of the Forest. The imagery of the war and peace may well have been on his mind when he composed this set, and this is the main theme from the Song of the Forest. And this is the beginning of the C major fugue, which has the same intervals. We can see, I don't know if you can see clearly, there are some perfect fifths and then some, major seconds. And this happens also in the E minor prelude. Same here in the E minor fugue. The intervals are in the outer voices, and so as the D major fugue. Same here in the B flat minor fugue. So we can really sense the tension between the abstract and the political in Opus 87. As I mentioned, it was sharply criticized when Shostakovich played it for the Composers Union. Fortunately, things improved after Nikolaiva performed the entire cycle. So I'm going to play 3 pieces from the set for you today. First, number 2 in A minor, then number 15 in D flat major, and finally number 24 in D minor. Before I perform them, I would like to share some of my findings with you, because they really shape the way I interpret these pieces. The A minor prelude is almost like a Baroque toccata. I would describe it as a kind of a perpetuum mobile. The texture is very thin, almost like you are playing on a harpsichord. The A minor fugue is the closest to Bach style among the 3 pieces I'm playing today. It uses the same rhythmic cells as the C minor fugue in Bach's WC Book 1. Yeah, this one. Everyone knows this piece. And then this is the Shostakovich A minor fugue. It's marked with both legato and staccato, which reminds me of Baroque performance practice. Even though Bach doesn't usually write articulations in such detail, we often play the leaps more staccato and stepwise motion more legato. Shostakovich actually indicates the same approach in this A minor fugue. Besides the shared rhythmic style I mentioned, the musical idea also comes from his Symphony No. 4, where it sounds like this in measure 191 to 192. Then we come to the one in D flat major. I think this prelude as a kind of miniature prelude. Its tonality is very stable, firmly in D flat major, which creates a sharp contrast with the fugue. I will talk more about this in the next slide. It begins with a very light-hearted way, and it almost gives the impression of "We wish you a Merry Christmas." Yeah, and many people believe that he did this deliberately, since this piece was composed in December. The fugue that follows is the most controversial in the whole set because of its strong hidden political meanings. Its writing is quite atonal. The subject uses 11 tones, and the last one only appears near the end of the fugue. Here I compare its polyphonic texture with that of the WC we looked at earlier. In the middle of the fugue, there's an intrusion of cadential passages that are almost homophonic. Shostakovich may be using the chaotic 11-tone subject to represent dissidence and the cadence to suggest dictatorship. So here's the dissidence. And then the dictatorship. In the end, this piece seems to finish happily with a triumphant cadential chorus, but is it really a happy ending? I doubt it. The D minor fugue is a powerful conclusion to the entire set. Together with the E minor fugue, it's one of the only two double fugues in Opus 87. It's also the longest piece of the cycle, and it works especially well as a standalone piece. Structurally, it's very significant, particularly in the fugue. Through the piece, we can feel a mixture of grief, sorrow, anger, and despair, with a hint of bittersweet reminiscence. The Russian folk tune we first hear in the prelude becomes the subject of the fugue, and is developed further. So, although Shostakovich marked all the preludes and fugues attacca, this one feels the most like a single continuous whole. Here's the folk tune. The second subject probably suggests a Jewish chant. It moves mostly in stepwise intervals with no ornamentation of the melody. Shostakovich was always fascinated by the ambiguous character of Jewish folklore and music. For example, in this song cycle from Jewish folk poetry. So here's the second subject. And here's a table that sums up some of the main structural features of the fugue. The fugue begins with a slow, tragic subject and then gradually unfolds. As in many fugues, the slow tempo and the tension in the musical material create a sense that the hero of the piece has serious difficulties to overcome. When the second subject enters, the music starts to move faster bit by bit. The ending is very grand. Shostakovich also used several fugal devices, such as the inverted subject and double stretto. In the next part, I will use the D-flat major fugue as my example. It is significant for its political meanings, as well as the tremendous technical difficulty and complexity. My own view is that articulation is crucial to help everything clean and tidy because the writing can easily make the music sound chaotic. Rob Isley once described the reprise of the Preludes theme as a teacher bursting unexpectedly into the room to quell the rebel. I will focus on aspects such as syncopation and changes of time signature. Well, the subject is marked in blue and lasts until measure 30. Here is the time signature changes to 5/4. I count as 1/2, 1/3, so the third beat feels like the strong beat. Next, you can see the marked accents in green, and finally the syncopations in red. To keep everything clear, I suggest slightly separating the note before each strong beat. Overall, I want to bring out both syncopations in the subject and the strong beats in 5/4. After that, I will highlight the accented episode, and finally the other syncopation, accented episode. And it's also important to think about Shostakovich's own performance style. His body movement is very limited. He uses a kind of minimalist approach to the keyboard with very precise finger action, which relates to his strong pianistic background. In terms of articulation, he talked about two basic touches. One is press, which involves using a lot of arm weight. The other is push, which is a fast, crisp attack. Whichever touch we choose as performers, I think it's best to keep the articulation consistent, unless there's a clear change of mood or character. Here's the live performance of his Piano Concerto No. 1, Opus 35, fourth movement from 1940. Well, I have no idea why he can play that fast. Shostakovich playing also gave me some ideas about how to use the pedals. There are hardly any pedal markings in the score, so his recordings are very helpful. Overall, his use of the demo pedal is quite clean and controlled. It enriches the harmony without blurring the melody. It is his 1952 recording of the D minor Prelude and Fugue. We'll listen to the last part of the Fugue. It gets pretty rowdy, and pay attention to how he controls the demo pedal. Well, it's time to wrap up our lecture. After years of political oppression, Shostakovich began turning more toward private works, and Opus 87 was the beginning of that shift. The very existence of this cycle can be seen as a quiet challenge to the anti-formalist movement. We see Shostakovich at his most creative big ideas, expressed in a concise musical language with a very clear focus. The three pieces I've chosen today each show this in their own very distinctive way. These masterpieces, with all the complexity and depth, were written in just a few months, which is really unbelievable. I personally feel that the musical ideas must have been in his mind for a long time already. It seems that Shostakovich somehow managed to satisfy Soviet demands while still staying true to his own artistic intentions. So sometimes I find myself wondering, was political oppression really only a hindrance to him, or did it also in some way shape the power of his music? As a pianist, I usually focus more in the technical side of pieces, but this time, doing such thorough research has helped me see things more from the composer's perspective and become more aware of how his life experiences shape the way he wrote. It also reminds me that performing is a kind of recreation. As the Russian musicologist Yavorsky described a perfect musical performance, the inner pulse of the performer and the inner pulse of the music become one. I've also gained a practical experience with technical challenges, like how to deal with complex rhythms. Well, let's skip this. Skip. Yeah, I will play now. Well, thank you so much for everyone for coming to my recital, lecture recital. I hope you have a good day. I'm tired, sorry.